What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another match review. My name is Joshua Joshi Howard, and today we're going to be talking about a match that happened recently on Wargames Live at Warzone Atlanta between David Purcell, regular contributor to the channel, and John Lennon. Of course, everybody knows him, second place at WCW, and one of the perennially best players of Warhammer 40k in the entire world. So, going to be very exciting to go over that one. Before we go too far with this, I do want to say that I am doing something a little bit new these days. I have opened up coaching if you're interested in that. I'm not going to go through all of this right now because it is, it's kind of a lot. But if you're interested in coaching and you want to get better at the game and think that you can get something out of me. I'm not as good as the Art of War players or David Gaylord or the 40k Fireside guys, but I can definitely help a lot of especially newer players get you to somewhere where you're going to be starting to be a threat at your local RTTs and your local GTs in order to help you understand the game a little bit better. If you're interested in that, go ahead and send an email to Joshi Joushi 40k at gmail.com with some of the questions down below answered. And once you do that, we can go ahead and get something set up and go from there. Anyway, I'm going to turn my own camera off and we can go ahead and get started with the game. So, like I said, this is a game between David Purcell, one of the regular contributors to the channel and a regular member of the Discord as well. Oh, one other thing as I go back. If you are interested in seeing any of these coaching sessions, I have been uploading them as well. That is a perk that we are adding to the channel for members only. So if you do want to see any of those videos, do you want to see whether what the coaching is like and whether or not that would be something that you would be interested in, go ahead and grab membership. So thanks to those of you who have already gotten membership. This is a way to say thank you. Okay, back to what we're talking about. This is a game between John Lennon, who is playing Stormlance Task Force Ultramarines, and David Purcell, who is playing the new Bridgehead Strike Mist detachment, but he was still playing it with the index rules. So Scions will be rerolling hits instead of rerolling wounds. He was playing 3 units of 15 Scions, a unit of Aquilons, Gaunt's Ghosts, a Taurox with Catachan, Cadians, 1 Field Endurance Battery, 2 Mortars, Creed, and then 2 tank commanders with demo cannons, which are still good at the time, and then 2 units of Kazarkin and Sly Marbo. Um, Going up against him, we had John Lennon, who was playing, like we said, a bit of an offbeat list. I believe it was 2 Ballistus Dreads coming through Rabuti Gilliman, 1 unit of Infiltrators, 2 units of Scouts, 1 unit of Incursors. They shoot something and give a +1 to hit. A couple of Speeders, I believe they were both the remove cover ones, but I might be wrong on that. A unit of Intercessors for the sticky, a unit of Outriders for the going very fast, and just damage to punches when they get into combat, and a Storm Raven gunship, which is definitely one of the data sheets of all time. It just does okay damage on its own, but when you give it access to Oath of Bowman and +1 to wound, like Ultramarines still do have, it can be very threatening. It's also very annoying to kill because for 1 CP or sometimes for free if Gilliman is standing near it, it is -1 to hit and wound basically always. And even though it is not the most durable vehicle in the world, giving it access to both those rules does make it a lot more tough to take down than you would expect. Oh, also there is what do you call it? Marnius Calgar with a unit of company heroes, and you can just barely see them. Let me go ahead and turn the pen on. Pen, there we go. And they are, hello? Pen, highlighter. There you go. You can kind of see that. Let me, why is this not working? Pen, ink color, blue. Is this easier to see? There we go. There we go. All right, we figured it out. Okay, there is Marius Calgar and a unit of company heroes hiding in right here. If you've never played up against Stormlands, big things to know about it is everything in the army has like uh, fallback and advance and charge, and you can auto advance like 9 inches with I think it's mounted and maybe vehicles, and then you get reactive moves. If you move within 9 inches for 1 CP, you can just move 6 on most things. So it's pretty powerful. But yeah, those are the main rules that they're kind of relying upon. And this kind of shell, with multiple Ballistus Dreadnoughts, Gilliman, Marnius Calgar with company heroes, and everything else is just kind of whatever. You can kind of do just about any detachment you want with that shell of units in um, what do you call it, in Ultramarines right now. So it's just very powerful. They were playing on Take and Hold, Hidden Supplies, and Search and Destroy, which is why you do see the corner deployments on this one. And we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. So this is what the game looks like right after deployment. So a couple things that are a little bit hard to see. There is a unit of Kazarkin, something like this, with a tank commander right under this ruin as well. This Torax has Katachan inside. You have Kazarkin here. This one right here is Marbo. We have Gaunt's Ghost over here. There is a Field Ordnance Battery and the Bombast Fox unit back here with Creed somewhere hiding in here. Unit of Mortars, unit of Cadians. That's everything that we have over on David's side. On the other side, we have one unit of Scouts here. I believe there's another unit of Scouts somewhere. I don't remember exactly where they are. We'll remember in a moment. Maybe this is them, but I believe this is the Incursors. Gilliman. I think the other Scouts are hiding under here. This is the unit of Infiltrators right here. We have a unit of Intercessors on the home objective. Ballistus Dread. Unit of Outriders, Storm Raven, and one of the Speeders. I don't remember which one exactly. Anyway, that's what the game looks like at the very beginning. And something to kind of think about with this game is whoever goes second doesn't really need to do anything. Because it's Take and Hold and Hidden Supplies, you can play very passive on this kind of mission, knowing that you're going to be getting to 15 at the end. So your goal, if you're going second, is to trade 10s back and forth and use the fact that you're going to get a 15 at the very end of the game to win you the game. You don't have to give battle if the person who's going first isn't pulling up on a big point lead. And we'll go ahead and analyze exactly how all of this happens throughout the course of the game. What ends up happening is John Lennon ends up winning the go first roll off, which immediately is supposed to put John on the back foot a little bit. He's the one who now has to push the tempo of the game, and he does so masterfully throughout the course of the game. But there are a couple of mistakes that David does make throughout the course of this game that we will go ahead and talk about as to major reasons why he might not have actually won. Of course, dice notwithstanding. So, this is what deployment looks like. This is Scouts, and maybe these are the Scouts, or maybe these are Incursors. They end up moving up this way. We have the Scouts move out a little bit. David took all of his Kazarkin. They go back underneath here. These Kazarkin didn't really move, and the Torax that was here with the Katachan just shifted a little bit such that it's still really hard to see, but, you know, if John really wanted to put the Outriders into it, he probably could. But anyway, so this is Scout moves. Not a whole lot exciting here. Very normal stuff all around. And this is what the game looks like. And we get the first really pivotal moment, the first decision that David makes that I'm not really a fan of. So we can see up in the top that John has drawn Area Denial. I'm going to switch pen colors. Pen, ink color, red. Area Denial, and Establish Locus. And what you can see is they've put down this coin here in the middle to represent where the center of the board is because, of course, naturally, these do not show where the center of the board is. This die was put here to be just 3 inches away from the center of the board, and you can see that this incursor has just come out to barely be within 3 inches there. Marbo, on the other side over here, is intended to be 6 inches away from the center of the board in order to deny area denial and also not being on that objective so your opponent can't get Storm Hostile off of it. And this is one of the first decisions that David makes that I really didn't care for. Excuse me. David chooses to take Marbo, and Marbo's rule, if you're not familiar, is after Marbo shoots, he gets to make a normal move. So this is normally a 6-inch move, but if he has move, this could be a 9-inch move. And David goes ahead, and right after these Incursors come out, David chooses to go with Marbo and Overwatch something. He's not expecting to do any damage. This is just a way to get the 6-inch move. And I really did not like this choice at the time. And after thinking it over more and more, I really don't like it. So there's a couple of reasons why I don't like it. So the first one is Marbo here is, by definition, within 6 inches of the center. And so he's going to take this 5-point area denial and it'll turn it into a 2. This is functionally, remember, a game of 40k is not only about how many points you score, but how many points you deny your opponent. So if David can prevent John from scoring a 5 and make him score a 2 instead, this is functionally a +3 to David's score, right? You don't care about the absolute number, you just care about the delta. More water. One of the other major reasons that I don't really like it is these scouts have a lot of freedom to kind of do what they want right now. John has pretty clearly signaled his intent by being 9 inches away, so just within 6, just within 3. He's not within range to throw a grenade. He's not going to put out multiple incursors, right? These two guys should never kill, or are very unlikely to kill Slime Marbo on his own all the way over here. And so, in order to put real threat onto Marbo, these scouts need to come over. And they are currently not within 12 inches, so they would need to move and allow Sly Marbo to actually go for an overwatch. So I don't really like this overwatch because it doesn't really accomplish anything. Right? Like you're not going to kill an incursor. If you're lucky, you'll kill an incursor. Um, it allows the scouts more mobility to move, and you go from giving your opponent a 2 to giving your opponent a 5. So that's giving your opponent 3 points. And on top of that, all of this happens, and you're spending a CP to do it. And we'll see a bit later on that CP becomes really crunched for David throughout the course of this game. Didn't really like this move. Talked to him a little bit. He's also like, yeah, I think you're right. I was just a little bit too scared when I was actually going for this. So anyway, after this Overwatch happens, we get to see this is what the board looks like. Slime Marbo comes back here. Scouts that were here moved back this way. They're now hiding in the building. And basically nothing else moved. And John very happily says, hey, cool, I'm going to take my 5 on Area Denial, and I'm going to take my 2 points on Established Locus. And it's a decent first turn coming out from John. Really important things here is this unit of incursors chose not to stand on this objective in order to make sure objectives like overwhelming force and storm hostile are difficult to do, because John knows he's never going to hold this primary. He's just never going to do it, and unit of Kazarkin will happily trade itself to kill this unit of incursors. They're similar points cost, and giving the +1 to hit to the rest of the Space Marines is very, very powerful. John doesn't want to trade this unit away with interest if in case it actually has any points. Oh, also Gilman is hiding under here. Okay, then we go into the beginning of David's turn, and we can already go ahead and, looks like I forgot to do a little bit. Anyway, this is what the board looks like after David's shooting. He takes this unit of Kazarkin that was hiding in here, comes out, everybody that can, there's like one guy here, but everybody who's here goes in, shoots the incursors. There is the Taurox that was hiding in this area, just goes over here. I think it rolls a 6 on advance and just hiding back over here. This is very safe, right? Not a whole lot. They did measure on this angle due to the 9-inch starting here. Nothing coming in here could actually see David's Taurox. So this is a very safe Taurox, all said. However, you can see that there's not a lot of movement. And something that Joe was saying quite a lot over the course of the game is that John Lennon has aura, right? A lot of people, a lot of good players, right? David is a very good player. I think he's like mid 1800s ELO. He's like top 200 globally in terms of ELO. He's very good. And Joe says that a lot of these players will play against John and then be afraid to play the game. I actually really like almost all of the movement that we currently see on the board, and by which I mean the fact that there's almost no movement. The only thing that I've seen in terms of like early game movement that I didn't like was Sly Marbo overwatching to get himself out. But there's a couple of things to think about. Bridgehead is an army that can be very aggressive if it needs to. If you need to go and just punch everything really, really hard, that's something that the army is capable of doing. However, this is an army that can do that, but it doesn't need to. And if you're going second, you really don't need to. push the tempo of the game at all, just because you are trying to be as safe as possible. You're trying to make sure that you're going to leverage your late game scoring going second, so things like sabotage and recover assets will autocomplete, and you're going to score your 15 at the end of the game. However, throughout all of this, so these Kazarkin, shot, and the indirect, that's all back here, all shot. They kill the incursors. That gets the 2 no prisoners points here. He's on this objective and this objective for secure no man's land. But we do got to talk about the one thing that David did that I really don't like. I didn't like it at the time, or rather, I didn't really understand it at the time, and then it really comes back to bite him. And that is Gaunt came down here. Let me remove all this. Gaunt came down here with the express idea of he was going to order this unit of Kazarkin, so it had both first rank fire, second rank fire, and take aim, and shooting at the incursors. That makes sense. They do have the smoke keyword. John did end up popping smoke in order to try and keep them alive. But the problem is the way that Gaunt's ghosts are strung out over here. The explicit idea was that David was trying to get a little bit of bonus utility out of them with Bragg and Larkin, the autocannon and the sniper, shooting downrange at the Storm Raven. However, there's a couple things to think about here. One, if they get really lucky, they're going to do 3 damage to the Storm Raven. They actually do get really lucky. But the problem with that is Gaunt is now really, really exposed. He's really easy to get to because of how quick these Outriders actually move. This unit can go, I think it's 12 inches base. You can auto-advance at 9 with a strat, and then it can advance and charge. So you have a 21-inch move, and then you can charge. So a 33-inch total threat range. And what's really scary about this is, you know, this is 6. So if we do that multiple times, so 6, 12, 18, right? So it's 18, it's probably like 20 inches all told between the bikes and Gaunt. And these Outriders are just hanging out here. Their entire point is at some point they're going to make a play over here, going to come down here. They're going to tie something up. They're going to hit something. And they actually have like a fair number of attacks at damage 2 when they make a charge. And we'll talk about exactly why this ends up really hurting in just a moment. So you can see that immediately John draws 2 really good secondaries. First one, contain. Contain. Hello? Yeah, there we go. Contain. So that's just always going to be a 6 points. And because it's search and destroy, where we have our deployment zone, something like this, little trick. This unit can contain this board edge, and this unit can contain this board edge. Like, you can do it all in one corner. You don't need to come out here. You don't need to be over here. On anything where your deployment zone doesn't, like, get to the corner, you can do it. Even, bonus tip, even if you have, like, your deployment zone on Crucible of Battle like this, you can do the same thing, right? Because this unit here is not in your deployment zone. There's nothing that says you can't contain your own board edge. It just has to be, you have to be not in your deployment zone, and that would qualify. Okay. So, John has drawn 2 really good secondaries again, right? He's got, turn 1, he got Air Denial for 5 and Established Locus for 2. This time he got an easy 6 with these 2 units, and the only question is, how is he going to score Assassination? At the beginning of the turn, he had Marbo here, but the other thing is that Gaunt's Ghosts are strung out here, and as we just identified, it's about 20 inches from here to get the charge off. John doesn't even feel like he needs to spend a CP to auto-advance 9 because they're mounted. He can just go for the regular roll and advance because 20 inches, move 12, advance. I think he rolled like a 2. That just means he needs to roll a 6, like 6 or 7 on a charge, and he's going to be in good shape. And so he immediately comes right on out. He doesn't need to expose this, doesn't need to expose Calgar, doesn't need to expose these guys. His entire army is able to stay safe because he's drawing really good on secondaries so far. He's going to take his 10 by holding this and this. And David is in a really tough position. Now, what we potentially could have seen, to go back, I'm going to go back to the previous slide and remove all of this. One of the things that could have been done to prevent this is if Gaunt stays, instead of like being here, 6 inches is somewhere like here, and you go ahead and just spread them out, something a little bit more like this, right? You're still going to be screening your 9, your 9. Your opponent can't come in, but, knowing this is 5, so, wait, no, this is a 6. 6, 12, 18, 24, and then like 28, right? They have a maximum threat range of 31. So you would need to use the strat, and then you're still looking at like a 8-inch charge ish, right? There's definitely ways to make this really tough. The other thing that they can do is they can also go for Marbo instead, but Marbo is way less core to the way that this army wants to play than Gonskos is. Gonskos has the up down. They're going to be giving orders all around. You would rather give up Marbo than give up Gonskos in this. And the other major thing is that this unit of Outriders, because they're able to charge in here, are now going to be posing threats. They're going to be asking questions about this objective, whereas if you make them go after Marbo, they're asking questions about this objective. You move where the actual fight is. You don't want to be fighting over your natural. You'd much rather force your opponent to fight over the middle of the board. So, John ends up going, this is what his movement looks like. There's not a lot of movement. And after the charge goes through, he does end up charging Gaunt's Ghost. These were just proxy models trying to measure things. They're not there. And then there is a heroic. David puts himself in a really tough position where these Khazarkin that are all hanging out here have to heroic, because you can see that I think these are each one, but 1, 2, 3. This is only 2 OC, right? This is part of the problem with giving not only a charge into Gaunt's Ghost, but putting a lot of pressure onto this objective. You're now allowing John to play for this side, and without this heroic intervention, David would have been on a 5 on his turn 2, which is devastating, right? You need to be scoring your 10s going second, because you are relying on having, or if you're trying to play a more passive playstyle, you need to be scoring your 10s. You need to be looking for ways to actually accomplish that in order to use your end of game scoring to its full effectiveness. What ends up happening, these Khazarkin come in, they chuck their Meltamine in, they do like a damage. John fails like every save possible in this combat, and so he ends up losing 1 bike. I don't remember which one exactly, but we'll find out in a moment. But all of the attacks coming through, because they're damage 2 on the charge, ends up wiping Gaunt's Ghost, and that is really, really tough. So we'll go ahead and take a look at what it looks like after the fight phase. Gaunt's Ghosts are dead. Khazarkin have wrapped around, and they are now on the point in order to make sure that David is at least getting his 10. But as we can already see, it is on David to force John to play a more proactive game. And so far, John has taken his incursors. His 1 unit here has scored him 7 points. This unit of Outriders has scored him 5 points. And these units over here have each scored him 3, basically doing nothing. So John has not been forced to actually come out and play the game yet, which is what David really wants him to do. David is really on the back foot, partly because John is drawing well. David's drawing okay. And yeah, it's really tough because John is not having to spend pieces in order to score any of his points. Or he's not having to spend any significant pieces of his army. All of his firepower is still intact. All of his melee threats are still intact. He's still able to create that go turn a little bit later on. So, okay. So, as we go towards the next one, this is, we've already seen 2 mistakes, or like 2 plays that I don't really like, right? The first one, we're going to go all the way back to here. This Overwatch, this is a play that was -3, okay? Then dropping gaunts like this here, gave up assassination, but it's a little bit more nebulous than that, right? It's not so much that it has given up assassination, because these guys could have instead gone for Marbo. Is tried to. like Marbo can overwatch them and then like hop behind here. So it's possible. Like this is maybe a -5, but more importantly, it's cost him when Marbo comes here, this is -1 CP, and then this heroic intervention. I'm going to clear this. So Gaunt's Ghost being here, it's maybe a -5 because Marbo could have potentially overwatched and hopped behind here where he's no longer attackable. But this Overwatch, this is 1 CP, and this heroic intervention, this is another CP. So Gaunt coming out here, this is an expected expenditure. This one is not. So you're down a CP. The first Overwatch as well is another CP that we're already down. So we're like down 2 CP, down 3 VP, and arguably down 8 VP from where we are supposed to be at this point. However, going second on take and hold hidden supplies is worth more than 8 VP. So we're still in a position where David is fine, but we are getting closer and closer to the idea of we need to outdraw John. And we need to find like some ways to stop the rest of the game. So, as you go into the next movement, this is the movement that probably loses the game. The first thing to think about is I play a lot of chess. It's very rarely the first mistake that loses you the game. It's usually the second mistake, and this is David's second mistake. So we've already identified how tough a lot of this has been. We have established locus and engage in all fronts, which are kind of low scoring because you can't do them when your opponent's DZ. Marbo comes through and touches the 6-inch mark, gets the +2. Engage in all fronts. The only real way that we can do this is drawing table quarters and then not being within 6, something like this. We're going to be in this one. We're going to be in this one. This one is pretty tough, but maybe there's a world where you can drop Aquilons here for 2 points, which don't really like, but possibility is there. But you can definitely be in this one with this unit of Kazarkin that John very specifically chose not to kill earlier because he didn't want to risk any of his army. And what you can kind of see, I'm going to go ahead and draw this again. And then, something like that. David pre-measures this and recognizes that he's like, this last guy here is like 9.5 inches away from being in this table quarter. Which means that he's going to need to move, and do an advance in order to get these Kazarkin on the other side. You never chance this on just rolling a 4 upon an advance. You always do it, move, so that a 1 will, so that a 1 will get you on the other side. And what you can see here is David ends up rolling a 6 on his advance. And this blue line here is an approximation of what 15 inches looks like. And the way I do this on these boards is I look for something that I know is 25mm bases, which in this case, you can kind of see them down here. We have a bunch of Cadians. These Cadians are 25mm bases, and an inch is 25.4, which is good enough for an estimation. You take that, and then you go like, hey, copy this. I do it in PowerPoint. You probably do it in something better, but PowerPoint is what I know. Inch is about this long, something like that. And then you go ahead and take this and you copy it 15 times. And that's how I get this measurement. So anyway, with a 15-inch move, remember there are a unit of Scout Marines down in here. These Scout Marines don't really do a whole lot, but we can kind of expect is this 15 that we have here. I'm literally using my fingers on the screen right now. That 15. Based on that, these Scout Marines are like 12 inches, maybe, from this first Leman Russ, and like probably like 16 or 17 inches to the second Leman Russ. That is a very easy charge when your entire army has advance and charge. You're going to move 6, you're going to advance, and if you're 16 inches away, and you just need to roll like 10 on 3d6, which is very doable for 3 dice. So one of the big things that David ends up doing, I'll go ahead and show you what he actually does, is he ends up taking the unit of Kazarkin and they go over here, right? But look at how much space. This is a very well drawn line. But look how much space he still has here. One of the things that I think really kills this game is the fact that these Kazarkin, um, you know, here's like your engagement on the front line. If this unit had gone like this, something like this, right? This does a couple of things. The first thing it does is you still get your engagement on front. This is 2 VP for being here. You're always going to throw away this unit in order to do that. But the second thing is now this unit of scouts, sure you can reactive move it, but let's just say they go, I'm going to do change colors, we're going to go to blue. Let's just say that this scout marine unit goes forward. And it goes like this, right? This unit now, like, this is like a 10-inch charge or something. This is way farther. If he takes this unit and he goes like this way, this is still a spot where you're very clearly signaling, but because you did this move first, you can react to that. Like, you can kill this unit in ways that you could not otherwise. So the fact that this Kazarkin unit doesn't get, again, doesn't get what I've heard called board equity by being here, blocking out the Hammer Strike, blocking out the Ballista's Dread, ends up being really tough for David, and we'll take a look at the ramifications of that in a bit. The other thing that I was thinking about, so remember how I was kind of saying that you could potentially drop Aquilons in here in order to get the second or the fourth quarter for engaging all fronts. It ends up coming back to bite him, and so this one I'm a little bit less convinced is a mistake and more of something that I think is an alternative line that I think is okay. So the main thing that I'm going to posit here is that this unit of Kazarkin, if it doesn't move, is... Oh, let's go ahead. We're going to take our fingers again. We're going to touch our screen. And this is about 16, 17 inches away from Calgar and friends. And they can already advance and charge. Like, they're going to move 6, and then they're going to have to get a fairly easy, like, charge off of that, right? This is definitely a charge that you can do. However, as we've already identified, the fact that we are playing over this objective right here, which is David's natural, it should be very tough for John to ever threaten it, because if we go back, we're going to touch our screen a little bit more, harass people, 15... I'm going to call it, I'm going to say this is probably from, like, here to here. This is in the neighborhood of, like, 20 inches or so. Maybe a little bit longer than that. That's not really something you can do, right? If you move 6 and advance 3, right, you're still looking at a 10, 11-inch charge. Most reasonable players are not going to take Calgar's unit and go for, a 10-inch charge. Yeah, it's just not how you play. It's not how good players play. Unless you really need to, unless it's your only way to win. So what I would have loved to see as an alternative way to actually play this turnout is taking a unit of Aquilons and dropping them something like this. This does a couple of things. One, Calgar's unit, as long as you do it properly, Calgar's unit, even if they charge around, should not be able to consolidate onto here, right? The second thing it does is it kind of forces your opponent to play the game a little bit, but because like Calgar's unit can come out and kill it, the Storm Raven probably just full kills the unit, but you're buying yourself time, you're removing pressure from this, and the third thing that it does that we're going to see in a moment is, so this is what David's actual movement looked like. This is what, he brings in a unit of Scions over here just to make sure that, 9-inch screen, 9-inch screen, 9-inch screen, that nothing can come in over here because it's going into turn 3. But the other thing that the Aquilons do is they make sure this speeder can't come in here. And the other thing, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, is that this Ballista's Dread up here can't come in here either because they are being blocked out. So it removes the whole point of dropping Aquilons where the speeder is that this can't be here and this ballistas can't be here. It removes all threat to our natural objective for at least another turn. I don't think it's the only way to have played this, but I think it is an alternative line that you really need to think about in buying space for your own army. Okay. This turn kind of just does itself. So let's see. You end up, mailing a couple more of these to death. I think they shot a pistol into it. Whatever. Kazakhin are coming through, and honestly, a lot of the shooting just goes really, really quickly. Yeah. But then we can see the really big issues with this Kazakhin movement in just a moment, which is the unit of Scout Marines that were hiding in here came out here. They got overwatched, and there was like two more here just a couple moments ago. Removing all of the ink. These guys came out. Calgar's unit came out. They're going to charge this. This bike passed its desperate escape and is now hanging out over here. And this, because at rapid ingress, doesn't need to move. It's already within loan up range in order to shoot Marbo. So David doesn't really lose like any really important pieces. This dies. This will die on the charge. This is not going to do any damage, and this ballistas isn't going to do any damage this turn, but it's going to set up to again try and play for this on the next turn. So the really big issue that we are once again seeing in this game is finally Calgar's unit is coming out to play, but it's going to do something really, really important. It's going to break the primary cycle. So the expectation, John's going to score 10, David's going to score 10. John's going to score 10, David's going to score 10. John's going to score 10, David's going to score 10. John's going to score 10, David's going to score 15. This is plus 5 for going second. However, because Calgar's unit comes out and it makes this charge and consolidates onto the point, this is going to be a 5. So this 5-point advantage that David was relying on is now a 0. And we've already identified Marbo here. This was -3. This Gaunt's unit here, we're going to argue to -5, right? So this is also a -5 from the expected. So we are now in a game where David is functionally scoring 13 fewer points than what the game is supposed to be at. Okay. So going back, Calgar coming through. This is the 12-inch that Marbo can't overwatch. They will hit this charge. This guy will come. It'll hit this charge, be annoying. This will clean this up, and then this is going to tie up both tank commanders. And the response that we end up seeing from this is that the Scout Marines, when they get in, they get heroic intervention for free by these mortars. And these mortars will get into combat, and we'll talk about everything that happens in just a moment. So, okay, so this is what it looks like at the end of the fight phase. You still have one Scout Marine here, tagging this tank commander, tagging this tank commander. Okay, these guys have a gazillion OC now on this point. I do wonder, these guys got picked up, they're no longer here. A couple of things happened. So the first one is the free heroic intervention from the mortars here doesn't really do anything. Maybe they do a wound to the Scout Marines, but he ends up using fire on my position. I call this one orbital lasers. On a 2+, you deal d6 to the opponent. And he ends up doing 2, which ends up killing only 1. But this is, once again, -1 CP from what we've been looking at. This Overwatch, -1 CP. This heroic that we have to do with the Kazakhin, -1 CP. We are now down 3 CP from what we really needed, from what we could have had in this game otherwise, right? Imagine, as I switch ink color, imagine that this was not a 1, this was instead a 4, okay? So the thing here is that, right, we are now down 5. Neither of these tank commanders. I'm gonna switch back to red. I don't like this color. Neither of these tank commanders can shoot at anything that they want to. They are now committed this turn to shooting at one scout marine. That sucks. That really sucks. And to make it worse, David has drawn recover assets and sabotage. This is asking for 3 units in his army to do nothing. It could potentially be one of these tank commanders. Oh, it's actually supposed to be one of the tank commanders. I didn't even think about that. We'll get back to that in a moment. He's asking for 3 units in David's army to not do any shooting on this turn. This is when David really, really wants his army to go out and play. So again, let's imagine that these Khazarkin were here, stopped these Scout Marines from coming in and actually tagging the tank. He has his mortars alive. These 2 tanks are free to play the game. This situation is still the same, right? Maybe you drop the Aquilans there. That's a different argument. But now, when David comes through, he has these 2 tank commanders. This speeder should be dead. These guys should probably full die. This does end up dying. And now you have full control over this side of the board. And Gilliman, also, you know, if you're dropping, like, back here, like, Stormraven can come this way and kill something if it wants. But you just have so much freedom with your army to collapse this entire flank. Make sure that nothing's happening on the top side of the board anymore. But as we take a look at what ends up happening, David is stuck with these. He doesn't have the CP to both kill what he needs to and do anything. And imagine, again, not a 1. Imagine this was a 4. You can cycle one of these. Probably, I don't know. Doesn't really matter. Let's say it's recover assets. You get rid of one of them. You suddenly have the ability to score a couple more points and recover. But the fact that he's not able to discard either of these is unexciting and is a potential really devastating issue if he gets stuck with one of them. So here's David's attempt to solve the problem. A couple of things. So there was the Taurox here. The Aquilons at the end of the movement phase shot the one bike to death. I think this Taurox probably should be, like, over here or somewhere that's not within 9. You cannot end a move within 9 of these because otherwise they're going to, like, hide back here, which is going to be really, really bad. And maybe you can take the Taurox and, like, put it here to block. But then they still, like, move off of the objective. I don't know. I'm talking myself in and out of it. The biggest point is there's a unit here that I think is doing recover, and then, like, the Aquilons here. One of them's doing recover, one of them's doing sabotage, and then something over here. I think it's, like, Cadians are sabotaging, or something like that. There's a unit of Scions here, which are able to shoot here and shoot here. This unit of Scions is only able to shoot here. These tank commanders have to shoot this one guy. Yeah. So this all comes out. This unit doesn't shoot. This doesn't shoot. These functionally don't shoot. Basically, David is trying to play this entire turn 3 with 2 units of Scions. Now, he actually gets really lucky with this unit of Scions when it's shooting at the Calgar's unit on the point. A couple of guys hiding back here behind the wall. Because John's saves just collapse. John, again, fails basically every save that he's rolling. And everything in this entire unit dies, including Calgar, except for one Victrix. That's not supposed to happen. This unit's supposed to take it's supposed to take 2 Scion units at least to full kill. So he gets really lucky in the fact that he gets as much of this as he does, because if he got even a little bit less, let's imagine that Calgar is still just A-okay. This unit can't shoot it. This unit takes a little bit of shooting. It does like 6 wounds or something to this. Very unexciting. But if this tank commander are here, you know, you shoot this is dead. These are way more comfortably dead, and the game then continues. But again, because he's out of CP, he's stuck with 2 pretty meh secondaries. He can't put any more pressure onto his opponent's side of the board. Um, Maybe there's a world where he takes like this unit of scions that are here and drops them here in order to like shoot at the speeder, maybe, and just create some problems for his opponent's side and force his opponent to answer some questions. But overall, this entire thing, it deals with all of the immediate problems, but it doesn't deal with all of the problems that are going to be coming up immediately after. And so the rest of the game from here on out kind of plays itself. I'll go over it quickly. So this is what it looks like at the end of shooting. So this shot, there's still one Victrix left alive. This shot there, these guys killed the one Scout Marine. He forgot to shoot his indirect immediately, but John very graciously let him shoot at these guys afterwards, going into the next turn. But this is what it looks like after John's movement phase. The Ballista's Dread, which was here, you know what he's doing. It's coming here. He has engaged on all fronts, defense stronghold. He's very easily getting 1, 2, 3/4, and then if this makes a charge, it'll be 4/4. Spoiler, it doesn't. Between this, and this shooting, like these Catachan are going to all be dead. This is going to try and make some charges. It ends up missing, but the major point is at the end of John's turn, this is what the board looks like. This Victrix has, and all of this shooting has functionally wiped out this unit of Scions. David is once again on another 5, so instead of going the 10, 10, 10, this is a 5, this is a 5. This one is potentially solvable with the Gaunt issue. This one is potentially solvable with the Aquilons, making sure that stuff can't come down here, and just blocking out Calgar. So this is potentially 2 5s that he potentially could have gotten. He gets really lucky that this speeder doesn't land a charge, but otherwise the game, like I said, has kind of been playing itself. We go into David's next turn. Comes out, truck comes out. Aquilons hop over here because he needs to storm hostile. Tank shoots Gilliman. Tank shoots like speeder and plane. These guys, you forgot to do it. They are actually over here, but these are all like very natural things. He needs to recoup control of his side of the board if he wants to have any chance at all. So this dies. Gilliman actually fails to stand back up. The Victrix dies because it fails another save. This lives, which is an issue. It's not something that you should be really expecting to live. Yeah. I think there was another small point, so I'm going to go back here. With engaged on all fronts, one of the things that I think David potentially had a chance to do is with this Aquilon unit, it can move 6, and it had access to move, 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 which he did give it. I think you can go 9 inches to here. This Torox moves out over here. And then if you just put like one guy like behind the ruin here and drop this unit of Scions between Scion shooting, Aquilon shooting, spread out something like this, and a grenade, I'm pretty sure this Ballista's Dread is supposed to die. But he did get a little bit unlucky. So as we actually take a look at it, like these Aquilons are out in the open, get shot. The Scions that are here don't actually kill the Ballista's Dread. Like this ends up living on like 4 or something like that. And yeah, so he ends up getting assassination, kills Gilliman. He ends up storming the hostile, but putting enough OC here. Let me double check what Ballista's Dreadnought OC is. It's probably 3. And someone in the comments is going to be like, I can't believe you didn't just know that. But I don't. Ballista's Dreadnought. It's OC 4. Okay. So then you would have to be really banking on like whether or not this is killing us. So maybe I don't like this as much. But either way, this is a play where you have to consider like getting rid of it. Because at the end, as we go into John's next turn, he's once again scoring his 10 very easily here. This Ballista's Dread is alive. Speeder died. Gilliman died. But this turn kind of played itself as well. He needs to storm hostile, shoots everything off of here, and then this guy who doesn't move auto passes battle shock, scores 4 points just for existing. The rest of his army goes ahead and shoots these guys off. Yeah, very natural play. Like I said, this turn kind of played itself. The big thing about this is the mark for death targets were tank, tank, and here. John just took plane and just like shot it into these guys in order to get the storm hostile, and then dread, 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 all just shot into this tank. Hammer. I think the speeder also came out. Yeah, the speeder also came out and shot, and the tank lived. It is what it is. But this is basically what happens at the end of the game. What did David draw? He drew Cleanse and Defense Stronghold, got his 15 like we were expecting. But the one last thought I had for this game is, as we can see, like the end score ends up being 85 to 78. I'm pretty sure David is supposed to pitch. Actually, you probably pitch Cleanse. Because you know that this is not enough to win you the game, but how many vehicles are there out there? Let me double check the Storm Raven, how many it's worth. Storm Raven. This is 14 wounds, so you got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10? Is that enough? So -4, so this is a +6. It kills everything, it's an 84. Yeah, because you got to do that. You probably need every ounce of firepower that you still have. Because, like, this isn't easy too. Because these tanks are both still alive, like, you're probably killing 1, 2, 3, 4 if you draw Bring It Down, right? Which gets you an 8. So this would be like an 82, which is still not enough, but something to think about. So, like, overall, I feel like David made a couple pretty big mistakes early on, but I also don't think a lot of players are necessarily good enough to punish them. But I also, like, going back and watching this, right? Like, this Gaunt being here is just simply not measuring this, right? You trade these Outriders for Gaunt every day, arguably even if you don't draw Assassination, just because they are a massive problem for John to deal with later on, and they improve the damage output of Silence quite a bit. This Marbo Overwatch here just costs, like, that's a 3-point difference, and if we look at the very end, right, like, if this was an 82, and we get rid of this and get lucky enough to bring it down, that's a draw. And then the other major issue is, yeah, like losing this because of the Outriders just being annoying and then giving Calgar the opportunity to charge onto this point. That's another 5. Like, there's just a fair number of points where David just missed out on some points deltas over and over again, and they ended up being too much for David to overcome. John is a very good player, but John should have been going into this one a little bit unfavored. This one is definitely one that David really could have chalked up and gotten as a win with a couple more accurate spots of movement. And I think this one here, with these Kazarkin, is probably the one that is most worth reconsidering. And then also considering this one, whether or not you drop the Aquilons, and then Gaunt's Ghost. I think that's just, to be honest, I think it's a kind of a silly mistake overall. But still, David, very good player. Very close game with John Lennon. Really enjoyed it. Shout out to War Games Live. Thanks again to Joe and everything that he does in order to support the community. But let's go ahead and go back. I'll put myself back on screen. I don't know why that's there. Anyway, here I am. It's been an hour talking about this game, David Purcell versus John Lennon. I hope this has been educational and useful for anyone who's watching. I had someone on Reddit say that they really enjoy these. I'm going to continue doing them as we get good guard players showing up on stream. So I'll go ahead and see you again soon. Other thoughts. I do have officer training school videos coming out soon. I don't have direct plans on exactly what they're going to be looking like, but I'm going to be talking about all of the new stuff. I've just needed some time to get some games in and make sure I understand them, make sure that all the people I'm going to be talking to understand them as well. We have another roundtable I'm planning to do about the mechanized detachment very soon, and then we will be revisiting Bridgehead and how it functions in the Codex probably next week. So anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. See you guys all next time. Bye bye.